Fantastic. So I was just saying welcome. Welcome everybody here, particularly welcome to you four. So yeah, the reason we're here tonight is a very beautiful reason to celebrate the coming back to Sheffield of 4 new order members, looking very resplendent in their robes, which is fantastic. So they've been on 3 different retreats between them. We've had Mahaprasara and Kashanti Chara have been, first of all, at Vidrasana, and then in Spain at Gukyaloka. Came back about 10 days ago. Great. Paranita was at Adhisthana for a 12-day retreat, is that right? And she came back about 2 weeks ago, roughly. And Jayaloka was at Padmaloka for a week's retreat, roughly. Yes, great. He's been back about a week. So it's fantastic that we can celebrate all 4 of them coming back to Sheffield today. That's just wonderful. And so they've been on their ordination retreat, which is just a really kind of key point in your life as a practicing Buddhist, when you make your commitment to make the Dharma, the Buddha, the Sangha, the center of your life. And that might look, these 4 people have very different lifestyles. It might look quite different in your life, but that is what you're doing. You have made a commitment to, well, for your own enlightenment and for the enlightenment of all beings as well. So a very big commitment and a very beautiful commitment. And I'm just really proud as an order member that we've got these 4 amazing people in the order. And I'm particularly proud as chair of Sheffield that we've got these 4 wonderful people in Sheffield in the order. It's just really fantastic for the Sangha. So I'm not going to say very much, but just to say that whilst they've been away, they took part in, the ordination has 2 parts. So there's a private part to the ordination, which is where they made a commitment witnessed by their private preceptor. Which is just like if there'd been nobody else, if there'd been no other Buddhists in the world, they would have made that commitment. And then they've also had a public ordination, which is where they were witnessed joining the Triratna Buddhist order, so the private and the public. And we have got the 2 private preceptors here today, which is fantastic. So Suryamati and Jayagupta, and they will say a little bit later. Okay, so before we go any further, just invite Leela Mati to come up and to just go off for a second. And maybe the other people who are also going to do something in a minute, if you want to just go and get yourselves ready as well. Yeah, I don't know actually who made the shrine. I haven't thanked them. But you're going to say that, great. Right, I'd like to invite Leela Mati to garland Paranita. And Bodhivasini to garland Kashanti Chara. And John Brazier to garland Mahaprasara. And Gaurava to garland Jayaloka. Okay, so what's going to happen for the rest of this evening is we are going to have we're going to hear from each of the people who've been newly ordained, our new order members. We're also going to hear a friend of theirs, a good friend of theirs, rejoicing in their merits. And the preceptor is going to explain the meaning of their new name. After that, we will have a 5-minute break, and then we're going to do a threefold puja, a ritual which will be led by Surimati and Jayagupta. So I shall hand over to Bodhi Naga, who is going to MC the short talks.
Yeah, thank you, Satyajyoti. So just before we go further, just to thank lots of people who worked really hard this afternoon and this evening, just making the shrine so beautiful, making the garlands, getting everything ready. So special thanks to Maitri Dasa, Aryadasa, Edward, Maitri Varsin, to Sangha Gita, Preti, Bodhi Varsini, John, Suryamati, lots and lots of people worked really hard to put all this together this afternoon. So, and it's a fantastic shrine and beautiful garland. So thank you. Thank you. So yeah, the first part of this evening, we're going to be introduced to our friends in a way. They're our friends already, but we're going to be reintroduced to them in their new form. So the way that will work is for each new order member, first of all, we'll ask their private preceptor to explain the meaning of their name to us. And then a good friend of theirs will rejoice in their merits. And then we'll invite the new order members to then speak to us, to say something in response to us, maybe about their ordination or something they would like us to know, to share with us. So the order will be Kashanti Chara, then Mahaprasara, then Paranita, and then Dayaloka. So first of all, if Jayagupta could explain to us the meaning of Kashanti Chara's name, and then Maitri Dasa will then rejoice, and then we'll hear from Kashanti Chara.
Good evening. I feel like I've successfully completed the 3-peat challenge. So I'd like to first introduce to you Kashanti Chara. Kashanti Chara, he who practices patience. And since he first received his letter of ordination, letter of invitation, about 4 years ago, if I remember rightly, he's had to grapple with some, grapple with some formidable challenges. But to his credit, he's held fast. He's cultivated both faith and fortitude in the face of difficulties. He's learnt to accept challenges, even to transform them, and understand that deep peace comes with that. So Kashanti obviously relates to the word Shanti. Kashanti, though itself, connotes with patience and forgiveness, and Chara gives us the idea of an ongoing practice. So in that way, his practice is patience. He's a great and a loyal friend. He cares deeply for everybody he meets, and loving acceptance for all, including himself, is his way forward.
So I warned Kashanti Chara that I was going to gush. So I'm going to gush. He gave me permission. So to me, Kashanti Chara is a beautiful, courageous friend. So they're the 3 things I want to talk about. So firstly, beautiful. So Kashanti Chara loves to create things, create environments that are aesthetically pleasing to the senses, and his creations are to a very high standard. He takes great care, he pays attention to detail, he does things very thoroughly and very well. Kashanti Chara must be full of beauty because it pours out of him in so many ways, in his inspiring, thoughtful shrines, in his abundant volunteers' lunches, which he hosts so beautifully, in the care of a friend, in the leading of a meditation. Whatever he does, there's a touch of elegance, a touch of class, and there's an aesthetic quality that's pleasing to be around. So beautiful. Secondly, courageous. So Kashanti Chara has faced his fair share of adversity and struggles in his life, particularly growing up as a sensitive gay young man in harsh 1970s Bradford. So to withstand this and other struggles and to become the person that he wanted to become, he's had to show a lot of courage and a lot of endurance. Kashanti Chara worked hard for many years as a nurse and a psychotherapist. Everything that he achieved in his profession was he had to work really hard for, and that didn't come without cost. Understandably, his work became a big part of his identity. But a few years ago, Kashanti Chara dared to take early retirement, and that took a lot of courage. It involved leaving behind not only the stress of the job, but also all that respect and admiration and influence that he'd accumulated over the years. It was a roller coaster journey at first, but it's been wonderful to see Kashanti Chara let go into a new chapter of his life and to tap into a deep vein of contentment and ease. He's had the courage to make a big change in his life, and that's made room for something new to arise. So Kashanti Chara is rising. So thirdly, friend, the most important quality for me. So I've known Kashanti Chara for 10 years, so we've spent a lot of time together. So we've lived together, we've worked together, we've played together, we've practiced together. And we've learned to blend like milk and water. Cry, that was, but I cut that out. To view each other with kindly eyes. So I know from personal experience that Kashanti Chara has the necessary qualities to be the best of friends. Kashanti Chara is a kind friend. He really cares about his friends, both in the sangha and outside the sangha, and he'll put himself out for you. Often in very practical ways, but sometimes just by being with you when you need some support. He's a generous friend. He's generous with his time, with his money, with his belongings, with his skills, with his experience. Kashanti Chara is a faithful friend. He will never write you off. He's willing to be with you at the worst of times, and he's very difficult to shock. He told me that once, and it was true. If he were to hear others speaking badly of you or treating you unfairly, he would definitely stick up for you. He's a trustworthy friend. You can trust that he'll be there if you need him. You can trust that if he's got anything to say, he'll say it to you, not behind your back. He's straightforward. He loves open and direct communication, no beating around the bush. He'll tell it you straight, and he'll ask the same from you. If he disagrees with you, he'll tell you, but he'll also think carefully about what you've said to him. You're a forgiving friend. He might be angry with you for a while, but he stays loving and is willing to give you a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance. It really hurts him to be out of harmony, and he'll do whatever he can to restore it. And finally, Kashanti Chara is a fun friend. You can have a really good laugh with Kashanti Chara. There's a playful irreverence about him that helps to break down barriers of pretense and projection. He's not interested in artificial friendship. He wants the real deal, and he is the real deal. So it's a great gain for me. It's a great gain for all of us to have such a companion in the spiritual life as Kashanti Chara. Beautiful, courageous friend.
So if you've ever had the good fortune to go out walking with this man, as I have on many occasions, you may have noticed his long and measured stride. He covers a lot of ground methodically and effortlessly. Maha means great, and prasara is, should I not finish, do you think? I will, I'm mid-sentence, so I'll finish. I'm sorry, I was trying to keep the pace going. That's completely blown it, hasn't it? And prasara is a Sanskrit word to describe going forwards, advancing to one's destination or making progress. Mahaprasara is no stranger to great journeys. Trekking in the Himalayan region being one of his great loves. But over the last 10 years, and probably for much longer, if the truth be known, he's been on another journey, the great journey. And he's faced challenges over that time, and yet his progress has been unstoppable. It's true to say that he's made great progress, and with mindfulness, he strides on. I'm sorry about that, Bodhinaga. Kashanti Chara.
I just love it when people get things wrong, because it always makes you look as if you're going to be all right. So yeah, yeah. Wow, it's just I'm just taking a minute to just look at you all really, and see the smiles behind the mask and the bright eyes. Yeah. So yeah, elegant. Was that a word? What was the other one? Class, yeah, that's me. Elegant and class. I don't think anybody's ever described me in that way, so thank you. So we've only got a few minutes really to talk about what on earth can you say about an experience that I think in some ways I'm still processing, and probably will process possibly even for years to come. Who knows? But what I do want to say is I just wanted to say something about my initial reaction to my name, which was, I loved it. It just felt absolutely, yeah, Kashanti was what I heard. I thought, yes, patient, enduring. And then it suddenly clocked on me with the Chara bit that actually I've been stitched up here. I have to keep practicing patience. And as we all know, particularly over the past year, perhaps, you know, that's not always easy. So it's a name that I love, and I thank Jai Gupta very much, and really appreciate his wisdom for choosing that name. And yeah, I think it's a name that I will continue to grow into over a period of time. So yeah, 4 years since I got my initial invitation. Lots of things happened that got in the way, but of course, as we all know, COVID was the latest of those. So I think we had 2 cancellations, and then the third was just moved, but we got there eventually. So me and Mahapasara went to Vidrasa and then off to Gukyaloka. What did I think? Well, I have to tell you, I've had a complete blast. For the last 2 months, it's just been like being in a completely different realm. I personally have quite a strong connection with the Anuruddhas, the Sutta. And for me, the retreat in Spain has come the closest yet to being able to experience those conditions, but also the harmony and living together with a group of brothers, who studying together, eating together, getting upset together, and doing all those things. I'm not going to talk about the loo, but you know, we got there with assistance. I think I have to also say something about gratitude, really. Obviously, gratitude to the Buddha himself, and then to our teacher, Sangha, who, of course, his system of practice is what the order is based on, and that's the thing that we all have in common. And we're all very different, and sometimes those differences can be jarring. But what we fundamentally have together is the Dharma, and that can overcome absolutely anything. I had a cooler, and in that cooler was Bodhinaga, Maitridasa, Amoghavansha, Savannah Garba. Who else was in there? There's one missing. Oh, Jai Gupta, yeah. Well done. So, I think I'll just block him out now. And without that, thank you, without that support, you know, my journey would have been even tougher, really. Although, as people know from my previous talks, I did find being in the cooler quite intimidating as well. So, but in a good way in retrospect, but not necessarily in a good way at the time, if you know what I mean. And of course, Padmaloka and the team there, and my preceptors, Priya and Jai Gupta, and all of you. Who knows what kind of order member I'm going to be, but I think there's just something that's arisen in the last couple of months that hopefully will continue to grow. And I really had a very strong awareness of the bodhicitta whilst I was away. Very powerful. But yeah, complete blast. I was outrageous, I was fun, and I got stuck in there as well. So thank you.
So we're going to be introduced to Mahaprasara, and we're going to have. So what do you want to do? Do you want to do that? Do you want to tell us again?
I think he's probably been introduced if people were listening. So I think we could just
carry on.
Yeah.
Okay. So Vidanya's going to rejoice in Mahaprasara, and then we'll hear from Mahaprasara after that.
Can you hear me at the back? Yeah, okay, I must be going deaf. I could have done with it being a bit louder, being partly deaf. Thank you. This doesn't count towards my 3 minutes. It's my great delight to welcome back and to rejoice in Mahaprasara. Great name, great progress. I think it could probably be nuanced to great achievement. And if not, then any Sanskrit scholars out there can, you know where to find me. Because, yeah, Mahaprasara, despite being a very, very unassuming man, is a man of great achievement, great achievement. I mean, he's managed to build up and run a successful business which allowed him to do exactly what he wanted, what he loved, which was traveling to places like Ladakh and places like that and finding beautiful things. He's managed to make that a success out of that while showing really deep concern for the people who work for him and deep concern for the people who provide the material that he was selling, the sort of people in those countries. And that is, I think that's, you know, it's difficult enough to make a business work, but that's a real achievement. I'm sort of minded of, no, I won't say that. Anyway, because I can't remember what I was going to say. So when I had the pleasure of rejoicing in Mahaprasara, or Pete as he was then when he became a Mitra, I said that in a previous age he would have been a merchant adventurer taking a caravan of camels along the Silk Route, and I think that's quite right. He's a modern day merchant adventurer, which I find. So he's an adventurous person. We've heard about the fact that he loves trekking. He doesn't just go, you know, join a trek. He organizes the trek, you know, employs the cook, employs the guide, makes the whole thing work, not going on some, and then goes to these really, really far off places. He's a man of great creativity and energy. So when he can't stop, we've heard about beauty, he can't stop creating beauty either. He can't stop creating beauty. When he sold the business, he just had a little hobby. You know, he started the Silk Road Gallery just as a sort of side, little thing to do on the side. He's produced, you know, a wonderful book that he gave me. He must have had sort of a spare hour or two. So Mahaprasara creates beauty. He creates beauty. His shop was beautiful. The Silk Road Gallery is beautiful. The stuff he sells is beautiful. His photography is beautiful. Oh my God, his house is beautiful. He sees beauty everywhere. So he's a really positive person. That's why he's so lovely to go out for a walk with. He sees the positive in people, he sees the positive in situations, and that means he lives in a really positive, beautiful world and really enjoys life. He really enjoys life, and it's really enjoyable spending time with him. He's warm-hearted and generous. You'll hate me saying this, but there's a guide that he's used in Ladakh, I believe, who hadn't been able to make any money because of COVID, and so Mahaprasara supported him during that time. So he's not going abroad, not going to these places he's really getting engaged with people. He's so interested in people that he connects with people everywhere he goes, and he's a great friend. Finally, of course, that strong feel for beauty also comes out as a feel for spiritual beauty. So Mahaprasara really connects deeply with the Dharma and with this sort of archetypal images and the higher beauty behind the beauty that we can see in this world. So it's an absolute delight to have you as a friend, and it's an absolute delight to welcome you in the order, Mahaprasara.
Well, thank you, everybody who's spoken so far. And wonderful Kalyana Mitras, without whom I wouldn't have ever got to this place. But first of all, I want to thank Kashanti Chara. It was just so delightful, really precious to me that we shared that ordination retreat together. So, all blessings. Yeah, so thank you. I got up to Vidanya. And actually, a huge thank you to the entire sangha. I've been coming here for 15 years, I think, thereabouts. Just a huge thank you to everybody, all the wisdom that I've heard, all the kindness that I've heard from different people. All the people that have listened to me, which can be a bit tedious sometimes. So, just huge thank you, a huge debt of gratitude. And hello, Manjanara, who was on the ordination with us. Great to see you. Yeah, and a huge thank you to my partner, my wife, Bev, and who's looking away, and to my dear friend, long-time friend and working colleague at the Natural Bed Company and at the Silk Road Gallery, Kay, who consistently encouraged me to go on this retreat for 2 months and leave everything in their capable hands. And I'm sure they miss me, but I hope they did. But and there's a real teaching in there, and that they managed without me, and I realised I wasn't that important after all. So 6 minutes to describe an amazing experience. I'll do my best. I suppose one thing that really came across was just the care, the kindness of the preceptors. Jai Gupta is my private preceptor, and Arthur Priya is my public preceptor. And, you know, at Vajrasana, there were 12 people getting ordained, 2 public preceptors, and then there were all the private preceptors for the people who were getting ordained. So there were a lot of order members. And it really felt like the whole weight of the order, of the movement, was behind us, willing us onwards towards this ordination. That was a really powerful inspiration and presence. You know what the rough outline of how it went. A couple of weeks at Vajrasana, spent a few days getting to know each other, and then suddenly we were into silence and a huge build-up of intensity towards first of all, the private and then the public ordination. The private ordination, we got our names to get used to that, you know, what is this? But of course we're in silence, so we can't really talk to anybody. And then there's a huge build-up to the public ordinations. And, you know, at times I felt like I was on fire with the intensity of it. It was almost painful. I think, you know, it was said to us many times that the full significance of the ordinations will manifest over weeks, months, years, and I'm sure that is the case. It's still trying to sink in to some extent. I was the oldest person there, so our private ordinations were scattered over 3 days, 3 nights. I was the oldest person there, so I was in the first group. You get the name, and then you're waiting for the other ordinations to take place, and it really is very, very intense. What I remember mostly about the public ordination is just standing there, facing everybody, and feeling that all the attention is on you, and just looking out at these older order members, or people who've been ordained a long time, and then the new people that you've just been ordained with, and just feeling like this is a moment in time which will never be repeated. It's a very powerful experience, powerful memory, and just the collective will and love and care that was put onto us. And then we move to Gukiloka. We leave the architectural beauty of Vajrasana and we go to the rustic beauty of Gukiloka up in the Spanish mountains. This forested valley between 2 great limestone escarpments. I'm not going to say too much about it, but thousands of butterflies, wildflowers everywhere. Dramatic weather, it was stormy when we got there. Had intense blue skies, brilliant moons, which we saw changing the season every day, the cycle of the moon. You know, just an amazing, expansive place and just wonderful conditions. But of course, you take yourself. You might not want to take yourself, but you take yourself with all your baggage. So it's not all plain sailing. It's not all sunlight and beauty in your own mind, at least not in my mind. I think it might have been in Kashanti Chara's actually. He was just absolutely fine the whole time. Okay. So yeah, I had my familiar difficulties came up. The old friends appeared and filled the space for a few days, but it was so expansive there that there was space for them to just dissipate and dissolve into. So, you know, the weather went up and down like it does. It was very supportive. A lot of people had their little issues. We had our new meditations to do with spiritual death and spiritual rebirth, and at times they were just some of the most expansive meditations I've ever had. At other times it was hard work as usual. And one of the things that really happened with the new meditations is that they really reinforced my metta practice. My metta practice just seemed to get a whole new set of legs, and I really hold that as a precious thing. It felt like we could have stayed forever, but we came back. I was very tired, and then I sort of, I sort of slumped, and I was disappointed that I slumped. I hoped I could control the bits of me that I wanted to change, but of course, it's not that simple. Had a great talk with Jai Gupta yesterday, and the weather improved. And, you know, the other great thing is actually, I realize I'm not a great spectator. I like to do things. I like to participate. And seeing you all here tonight reminds me that I really want to participate in the Sheffield Sangha. So thank you hugely, all of you, for coming. Thank you.
Mahaprasara. So next we're going to be introduced to Paranita. So Suryamati will first explain Paranita's name, and then Kamasuri is going to rejoice in Paranita, and then we'll invite Paranita to speak to us after that.
Well, it's my very, very great pleasure to introduce you to the lovely woman, Paranita. So Paranita is a Sanskrit name. For those who are interested, it's got one of those lines over the first and the last A and the I, which means that actually, technically, you should say Paranita. But being a northerner, that's quite difficult. Like Tara, okay, Para like Tara, Paranita. Yeah, what does it mean? Well, you've all come across Para. Para is part of the mantra of Pranya Paramita that we chant at the end of the Heart Sutra. So we say, Gate, Gate, Para Gate. And you'll probably know that in that context, it means the beyond. And what it's pointing to is the goal of the spiritual life. It's pointing to enlightenment. It's pointing to the arising of the bodhicitta. It's pointing to the transcendental. And that's great. I mean, the link is intended because Paranita has a very, very strong connection with Pranya Paramita and the perfection of wisdom literature in general. And so the first part of her name is a link with her yidam, Pranya Paramita. So Nita means guided or led. So Paranita's name means guided by or led towards the beyond or the farther shore. And yeah, those of you who know Paranita will know that, well, there is a bit of an element of the beyond about her. She's always been fascinated by it. She's got an intuitive sense of steering towards something that is mysterious and very important and real. She's a physicist. She's always been fascinated by the nature of reality. So she's been on a quest, really, since she came here and since before she came here, to find out what reality is all about. So, yeah, Paranita means guided by the beyond. And yeah, that might sound a bit vague. It might sound a bit mystical even. But actually, those of you who know Paranita will know that actually she's very practical. She's very grounded. And she knows that being led towards the beyond or being steered towards the beyond actually means acting ethically. It means acting with great kindness. And she has a very beneficial effect on her family members, on her friends, on her sangha, and everything that she comes into contact with, really. And her spiritual journey, especially the last few years of it, have been a bit bumpy. She's had to face quite a few difficulties. And in many ways, that guiding light has shone even brighter through the difficulties. There's been a sense of having a rudder, having a sort of guidance, knowing what she needed to do to rise above the difficulties. So, yeah, Paranita, guided, she who was guided by or towards the farther shore. Yeah, just read you the last bit, which I'd forgotten about. Yeah, okay. Guided by the farther shore, her name will be a reminder both of her direction of travel and that she can have confidence in her resonance with the transcendental.
What a lovely thing to be asked to do. I'm so pleased I got asked to do this. And what a fantastic name, Paranita. Sorry, Matthew, well done. She who is guided by the further shore. And it is completely true. I don't know how long I've known you, because I'm not very good at years. 6 years, something like that. Yeah, maybe 6 years. For the past 3 years, Sangha Gita and I have been her KMs, her spiritual friends, nominated spiritual friends. And it's been an absolute treat. It's been a delight. I first met Paranita when Sangha Gita suggested that you come to me to talk to me about your meditation practice. Sangha Gita was her Mitra study leader, so knew her well. And I just went, oh, I work full time. I've got a lot of other commitments. I just can't do it. Yeah. So I just went, sorry, no. We'll bump into each other occasionally, and I'll be very pleased to talk to you, but I can't take you on. And then Paranita, so she tells me, stalked me. Yeah, so she got it into her head that this is what was going to happen, and I got stalked. And she'd turn up on retreats at Taraloka, where I was on the team, and then she'd be in my group, of course, because she came from Sheffield, and I'd want to have her in my group. And but I would just like to say it did not feel like I was being stalked. You had to tell me a long time later that that was your plan, but I actually didn't notice that. I just felt like I was being invited to get to know you better. So you were very gentle with me. Yeah, and I think this is really a kind of example of her drive and the kind of direction that Suri Mati talks about. She knows where she's going. Yeah, you've got your eye on that further shore. Yeah. And so she has a commitment to seeking the truth and wanting to understand. Wanting to understand is really important to you. And it's also an example of the work she's put into her friendships, the relationships that she felt she needed to make the most of her practice and her experience. Paranita is a scientist, yeah, and she wants to know why, and she wants to know how, and she wants to know how does this fit in, and how do these things mesh together, and what sense do we make of this? She's a very sort of sense-making, we're all sense-making organisms, but I think you're a very sense-making organism, okay. So she likes to understand what's happened to her, and she likes to be able to apply what she's learned. And this is really good because she did exactly what the Buddha suggested. He said, test the Dharma in the fire of your experience. And that's what you do. That's what you do. Does this work? Paranita is intense. Wow, I'm nearly done. Her Buddhist practice is intense, and it has needed to be. In the time that I've known her, her life has been seriously unpredictable. Shocks, surprises, turning upside downs, inside out. And at one time, Paranita thought she could apply the Dharma and skillfully control the outcome. But I'm afraid life had other plans. It's true what Sangharakshita said. It's true what Bhante says. Life is king. Yeah, life is king. So Paranita is learning to ride the roller coaster of life. She has learned to go for refuge with all her being and just be with just what is. And this is very difficult to do, and it is also fantastic. Paranita is able to turn around and face suffering with increasing equanimity, with confidence in her practice, with her resonance with the transcendental, and her trust in love. She is truly someone guided by the further shore of the Dharma.
I don't think I can speak. Oh, thank you, Kemasuri. That was lovely. Yeah. So I do like things intense, and I got 2 weeks' notice before my ordination retreat. Yeah, so it was quite sudden. And I just remember how I felt. I was sitting in my garden and I had the invitation in my hand, and it wasn't really a shock. It just felt right. It felt the right time, and it was like the whole of me just nodded. Yes, that's right. That's the thing to do. Yeah. So my ordination was at Adhisthana in the UK with 7 other women. And so we've just got a few minutes, haven't we, to talk about that. I don't know what I can say, really. I can't really express it. But it was absolutely perfect. It was perfect, and it was right in every single way. It was just perfect. And it was like going into a timeless heavenly realm for a little while, and just very beautiful. I think the place was perfect for me because it's Adhisthana's where Bhante Sangharakshita lived his last years. And it's where I met with him a few years ago. Really extraordinary meeting. And it's where he died and where he's buried. So there's a beautiful burial mound and his memorial gardens. And it's a beautiful place. Adhisthana means grace or blessings. And we did feel as though our ordinations were blessed in that way. There was a tangible sense of that whilst we were there. Yeah, and Adhisthana is the central hub, really, of the movement. And so there was a lot going on. There were other retreats happening and courses and the communities and lots of busyness there. And we just had this sense of being kind of cocooned within that people were treating the ordinations as really central to Triratna, and it felt like they were treated with care and reverence. And it had a sense of almost like a vigil about it. It was really, really beautiful. It was wonderful, yeah. And I've been thinking about what goes into creating a new order member, everything that goes into that, and all the people involved. So I just want to really rejoice in a few people who've been involved in my journey towards ordination. So firstly, Suryamati, my preceptor. It's just fab to say that because prospective private preceptor is a bit of a mouthful. So yeah, Suryamati, my private preceptor. And again, on the retreat, she was perfect, absolutely perfect. If you want a preceptor, I'm probably not allowed to say this, but if you want one, she's good. She's really good. So yeah, on the one hand, just a really lovely friendship, a really lovely, easy friendship, lots of laughter. You know, we had a good time. We enjoyed it. Yeah. And on the other hand, a real natural, easy expression of her deep connection to the Dharma, really tangible. And so, yeah, a fusion of the relative and the absolute, really, in the way that she was on that retreat and is. Yeah. So for many years, she's been unfailingly supportive of my practice, kind and generous. And when I say unfailingly, I mean consistently, unfailingly. It's quite remarkable. And it comes from a deep, quiet wisdom. Yeah. She's very capable, she's very grounded, and she's considered qualified to witness my entering the order, so I can have confidence in that. Yeah. So, Surimati, thank you. And my KMs and other spiritual friends. So, Kema Suri, who I've pursued and hounded for years, and finally gave in and became my wise friend and meditation guru. So, no pressure. That's just... And Sangha Gita and my Mitra group, original Mitra group, and we still meet every week, and we have been meeting for 7 years, Jenny and Jordana. I'm going to be really quick. With a great depth of friendship and practice behind us, yeah. And I want to mention my old friends outside the Sangha, Anna and Jill and Kay, they just make me feel safe and loved in the world. And my kids, who call my practice my Buddhistry. So if anything ever goes wrong, they say, Mum, I fear only Buddhistry can help with this. Go to the centre. So yeah, just how much goes into creating a new order member. And I just hope that all our Buddhistry and our ordinations can bring benefit to the world in the future. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Paranita. And I've learnt a new word, Buddhistry, which I think I'm going to be using regularly now. So last but by no means least, we're going to be introduced to Dayaloka. So firstly, Jai Gupta will introduce us to Dayaloka's name. Then I'm going to rejoice in Dayaloka's merits, and then we'll hear from Dayaloka himself.
I get it in the right place this time. With a bit of luck. So, Dayaloka. So, Daya is a Sanskrit word for kindness or compassion. And Loka, as probably all of us know, means land or world or realm. So this is just the right name for a warm and gentle man who's made a practice out of being a friend. He enlivens those he sees in the Sangha and elsewhere, meeting them with that kindness and compassion. So he who is a world of kindness must also be kind to the world, and this opens up another dimension of his practice, connection with the land, with the earth. And it finds its expression in his involvement with Buddha Field, wait for it, where practice is intense. Didn't get a laugh last time. So this aspect of his practice may well continue to flourish, and I hope it does. I'd like to welcome Dayaloka into the order.
Yeah, so it's my real delight to be able to rejoice in Dayaloka. And they're all marvelous names, but yeah, again, what a wonderful name, what a marvelous name for Dayaloka. Just before he went away to be ordained, I said to Dayaloka that I've met a lot of kind and kind of caring people in my time in the order and in the movement, but he's right up there at the top. He's one of the kindest and most caring people that I've met ever, really. And so he excels in kindness, and he excels in friendliness and in care of other people. And I've experienced that myself personally. So probably a couple of years ago, I was having a tough time, and Dialogue was just really, really kind to me. And I was taken aback by that, because I was supposed to be in this kind of order member relationship to him, supporting him, but he just really, really cared for me. And I could tell he really cared for me and really wanted to know that I was okay, my family was okay, and kept asking after us. So that was the first time I was really struck by the kind of weight of his kindness. But I've seen it care to other friends as well. So during the pandemic, during the last couple of 18 months, he's been cycling over to Derbyshire, to all different places, just to keep in touch with friends, make sure they're not isolated. And he goes there on his bike, and he's got a very demanding job, which I'll talk about. But in the evenings, he goes and visits people and takes them gifts and spends time with them. So he just cares for people. And also he's had sleepless nights because he's taken in someone's cats because they couldn't look after them. So he was being woken up by people's cats, someone else's cats that he was looking after. So he's prepared to put himself out and make big sacrifices for other people. Notwithstanding his own family, he's got a family, and he's made huge sacrifices and continues to do for them. They're really, really important to him. And he really cares for them. He really, really cares for his family. So he's a really kind and caring man. But he's also a man of incredible talents. He's a man with huge responsibilities in the world. So I don't know the exact title of your job, but I know it's very important. He's a dean at the university, and with a lot of responsibility, huge amount of responsibility. So it goes without saying, he's also very, very reliable. So we started a Going for Refuge group, which I was part of, and very quickly, Dialogue just took on organising it and running it in a way. He was just much more reliable than I was. So he would send out the email, send out the links. He's just a hugely reliable man, but a very powerful intellect as well. So really, really sharp mind, very, very intelligent man, really powerful intellect. But also alongside that, very, very humble and unassuming and polite. So you wouldn't guess that of the nature of his work in the world and the responsibility he holds and the power of his intellect, because he's very unassuming, very, very polite. And so not a big ego at all. His focus is on other people, and his awareness is on other people. And also he's a man of hugely positive emotions. So that includes reverence and devotion and gratitude. Always is training for ordination, expressing gratitude to me, to his friends, to the centre. Very reverential as well towards the Buddha, and now to Vajrasattva, I understand. And finally, well, two other things, if I've got time, I'll try and make them quick. He's a very ethical man. So he's a man of just really, really strong practice of ethics. And maybe I don't need to say much more about that, but just very, very ethical man. And finally, a man of mudita, who just takes delight in his friends and pleasure in his friends. So he's a man who cares for the people, but he gets as much out of it as they do. He just delights in looking after people and caring for them. And this was some that our Going for Refuge group that we have on Sunday mornings. Just before he was ordained, Dialoka took us out to the Peak District and cooked us all a breakfast. And he put so much effort into kind of lugging out all the food and all the cooking equipment and making stuff in the morning preparing stuff before we went out. And then he got more, I think, pleasure from us eating it and enjoying it than we did. He just really, really cared for us and took delight in us. So I'm hugely lucky to have Dialoka as my friend, and we're really fortunate to have Dialoka in our order and part of the Sheffield Sangha, and also part of the Buddhafield Sangha as well. So Dialoka.
Hello. I think I'm still getting used to standing in front of people and not in front of a screen. So I might just look at the screen, because that just seems like an easier thing to do. So, the last 3 weeks has just been just incredible. And Satyajyoti said that we were just trying to work out when my send-off was, and it was only 3 weeks ago. It kind of feels both yesterday and like years ago. It's just it's definitely a different life. I just wanted to, I think like everyone else, it's just really expressed lots of gratitude, and could just go on and express gratitude and rejoice in everyone's merits. And we could just do that. That would just be fantastic. But I will be reminded that I can't do that. So, yeah, so what was I going to say? First thing I'd say probably Vidania used to joke that it kind of took a while to get around to asking for things and sort of shilly-shallying, dilly-dallying about, asking to become a mitra, asking for ordination, and then things like asking, someone to be right. He said, you do need someone to be your private preceptor if you're ever going to get ordained. So one dark night in December, John Gupta and I are going for a walk near his house in the dark. And I asked you, in the dark. So always ask a perspective for private preceptors in the dark. But yeah, when I got the letter, I just had this overwhelming sense of gratitude for everyone who's just sort of helped me along the way. And it's lovely seeing Kay Mashuri here, because I remember Kay Mashuri giving an amazing talk at Buddhist probably 10, 15 years ago or some other time. And it was funny, I was thinking about that this week, actually. But yeah, just friends at the centre, Mogavamsa's warm embrace, when I've just sort of felt a bit wobbly, things were difficult, I just sensed that what I needed. And I just think, I just had a sense of things will be okay. Vidania, I don't know how long we've been in the same study group. I've been in your study group before, but eons again, probably 7, 8 years or something. But yeah, just really blessed. And also to Kamala Nandi, who, without meeting Kamala Nandi, I wouldn't have come through the door to this centre, and who's been an absolute rock of support to my practice and allowing me to go on retreats and so on and so forth. So when we had the sort of send-off a few weeks ago, which was, because I'd been to Mahaprasada's and Kashanti Chara's a few weeks before, and I thought, oh yeah, it's a ritual at the Buddhist Centre. It's quite strong, it's here. But then I was up at the front, in the tent outside. I was like, both at one point had this sense of not really liking being the centre of attention, but also just, this is me going away for ordination. This is me going for refuge on my own, this real sense of the private part of the ordination. But then almost simultaneously, all my friends, my spiritual friends, my friends in the sangha, both here in the tent and on the screen, I was just incredibly powerful. I think it was really captured by Vidania doing the rejoicings and just being, I don't think I've been rejoiced in by Vidania before, but the rejoicings and a caught in Vidania's stare and this warmth and power, and just felt really held, and that, I was really joining something incredible and about to join something incredible. Like, it felt like crossing a threshold that night and that rejoicing. And just, I already thanked Maitradasa about the shrine, and just that whole send-off was wonderful. In terms of private ordination, I'm not going to say much about private ordination, and something that's mentioned before, something that's mentioned more about the nature of the private ordination. But in the lead up to that, I think it might have been the night of the private ordination, Satyaraja was introducing them. And he was just saying about his experience of his ordination, which I think was something like 35, 36 years ago. And it's still unfolding mysteries to him, or mysteries are being unfolded and revealed to him in that right now. And I think the mythic element I hadn't really got until that moment. It was like a sort of thunderbolt of just this world opening up, and then the private ordination of just this other life, this mythic life, and this world of sort of infinite possibilities just there. So just a few final things, a few final thoughts and thanks. So on the public ordination, just before the public ordination, Jai Gupta had Dorm A, some of you might know Dorm A who've been to Padmaloka, and we had created a lovely shrine in Dorm A, and we'd spent time there, and he'd introduced me to my sadhana there in Dorm A, if you're ever there. But just before, sitting in front of the shrine, I took all the cards that people had given me before going away, And I just kind of got them out, and I was looking at them just before going down, robing up and going down to the ceremony. And it was just lovely. I had a card, a Mogavamsa gave me, which is a lino cut of Bhante on the shrine. I had Bhante on the shrine, and a card that I just opened was from Liz Zylstra, and it had Bante's poem in it, The Wind. And just remember reading The Wind as I went down to the public ordination, with a sense of this was a realm of, Bhante had been, where he'd taught, brought us teachings of the Buddha, where he'd ordained many others, and circumambulating the stupa with Dada Rinpoche's relics in was just incredible. So there's a sort of immense gratitude to everything that Bhante and Sangharakshita has done, and to the Buddha. And to you all, I feel I am joining in, to quote Amoghavamsa, I am joining an illustrious order.
Yeah, so such a joke. Well, just to say thank you. I was going to say, as you said earlier, we're going to have a break now, and I thought, no, let's say thank you first. So thank you for everybody who's just contributed to that very, very moving, very beautiful part of the evening. Just, yeah, wonderful. Let's have another round of applause for these four members. And so now we're going to have a short 5-minute break, and then our preceptors will lead us in a puja.